Zero is our daughter-in-law. I know, right? She's pretty precious. And obviously the huge thing is we got a new character, Zero, which I uh, I really like her. I really like her a lot. I think it's really I really hope that she becomes part of like the new cast they want in like 7.0, right? I think she will make a fantastic addition to the new group that they presumably want to form. Um, 'Cause she's just a very interesting character, and she's like a really cool representation of the type of environment in the 13th. Yeah, so there's just a lot of interesting things about Zero. Like I love those dialogue bits with like Xenos because she saw the world through Xenos' eyes, and she has such a scuffed perception of what things mean. You know, I love that part where she asks like, uh, is friendship like akin to what Xenos was to you? And you can just reply with absolutely not. Yes, that kind of stuff is so awesome. It's she's honestly like kind of almost like a gold mine for the writers. I feel like really they can really express a lot of things, and you know, like for example, when she was consuming the apple, and she was told to, instead of like just absorbing the ether, to instead enjoy it and eat it properly. It kind of harkens back to that theme from Endwalker, doesn't it? Right, like enjoying all the little things, and she's kind of there's like some dialogue with her at the end that suggests that she's kind of slowly starting to appreciate life, because you know she never had a proper chance. Because you know that the 13th is more like, not to sound too edgy, but you know it's there's more death going on in there than life. So I also like that Zero, like I loved what they did with the whole like when you're fighting Mylon and you're he's summoning like the voids, you know, like rebirthing the voidsent. Um, you you rely on Zero to defeat them for good, and this kind of what I love about that is, you know, as a warrior of light, we've become so overpowered that it's easy to imagine that we're like just a one-man army. We can just go in and do whatever we want, right? But no, we actually rely on Zero, and I think that's awesome. Yeah, I was pretty shocked like when we saw the Void Synth, like Xenos' avatar, and it turns out to be a human. I'm like, whoa, you know, like that was pretty surprising to see a Void Synth that is partially human. So, but I think that's, as I said, you know, it's almost like Goldman for the Rise. It's a really cool character idea, right? You have this person who's lived in this awful dog eat dog kind of a world for thousands of years, and she has just a completely different outlook on life. And yeah, as I said, the interactions are just awesome. Uh, like I love, for example, the contrast between when Vangelis attacks Zero's domain essentially, and she claps like two of the Voidsent there. I love how Vrtra, you know, of course, because he's a dragon, and you know, as we know, dragons are very sentimental. They are very much kind of slaves to emotions. He's immediately concerned. He's like, "Hey, do you need a moment?" You know, they fell, and Zero is literally like, "Bro, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't care." So I love those little like interactions. She's a fun character. She's she's not like at first I thought she was gonna be like this brooding asshole, like this really, you know, like very emo type of character. But now she's actually really fun, uh, an awesome character. Yeah, you could say that the relationship was I, because she did get to see a bit of the world through the eyes of the avatar, through Xenos' eyes essentially. Though she does, of course, later mention, through Xenos, I thought I understood the ways of your world, but the more I learn of it, the more I realize how little I actually know. It's also strange, your behavior and your reasons. I find myself baffled at every turn. But then and this is why I like her character, right? Because she follows, she's like, but the feeling is not unwelcome. I'm learning bit by bit. It was the right decision to join you. So, obviously at the start, she's all about like, oh, like, uh, I'll only join you if you give me something in return, like, of course, typical mentality for that world. But she later she kind of comes around. She's like, okay, this is kind of an awesome experience. And to be fair, like, if you lived in such a like hellhole and you were introduced to the source, I mean, I would be enjoying life too. She's a fantastic addition, I think, to the cast, and I really look forward to seeing more of Zero. I think she's a great character. Obviously, there's theories that Zero is a very convenient name because there's a certain boss. I don't want to spoil FF4 too much in this video because some of you may not have played it, and I don't want to spoil it, because I think it's a great game. But there is an entity in 4 called Zeromus, so I'm kind of wondering if perhaps perhaps there will be a void sent called Zemus who's gonna merge with Zero and become Zeromus. Like, who knows, right? could be something to do with that name. That was pretty awesome, and it's not just the new character. I actually like the existing characters as well, like Estinien. Oh my god, I loved Estinien this patch, and also the last patch too. Like, Estinien is so fitting to this world, right? Because it's so funny. Like, he's even relating, or like not maybe relating is well, he is kind of relating, because he says like he had his essence blended with Nidhogg. So he's like, yeah, that was horrible, but I can't imagine how bad it is for these guys. So I love that Estinien is kind of sympathizing with them. Like, when you walk around Zero's domain, he's like chilling, just talking to these Voidsent, and he comments, he says, if a Voidsent is too weak to create its own domain, it must join with others for protection. Alternatively, it might devour them in a bid to become stronger, but in so doing, risk losing its sense of self. And he follows up with, "'Tis an unenviable struggle." So I love how Estinien of all characters would actually relate to this. I think that's awesome. And I love how he's like, oh, Ether as the coin of choice. I like the simplicity, like, he was awesome. But I think my favorite comment from Estinien was, this optional dialogue, so I hope you guys didn't miss it, but he mentions after meeting Zero, I think, for the first time, he's like, their one rule is no different from that of many in our world. It's those like Alphino who are the rare breed. I love that callback to Alphino because, well, obviously Estinien is very fond of Alphino, and this really harkens to, for those who watch my Alphino analysis, I say in it that this is exactly what I loved about Alphino as a character, that he was this very altruistic soul, because it's so rare to meet people like that. So it's just great that Estinien is acknowledging it here, and yeah, it just really shows their bond. Another character I liked was Ustola as well. At first I was a bit like skeptical, like why do we need to bring Ustola along? But her wits were actually pretty helpful from time to time. Like, she kind of knew how to play the game according to Zero's rules. Like, I love that whole thing where she's like, "Oh, but you do owe us. We gave you your name," and Zero is like, "Oh yeah, you're right, you did. Oh shit, I do have to help you." She's they did a pretty good job at like demonstrating her wits. And Vrtra, as I said, I just love Vrtra. Like, Vrtra is so cool. I mean, it's been a long time since we properly like interacted with like a first brood, so it's just awesome to see. And I'm sensing, because the dragons in this game are so freaking tragic. I'm already sensing that there won't be a happy resolution with him and us there. Like, a lot of people are speculating that he's gonna end up having to sacrifice himself or something like that, but it's probably gonna be horrible in any case. So, I'm kind of dreading for Vitra's fate in this little story arc, but you know, but he's a cool character, And he's kind of like besides Zero, like kind of a new character, right? We could even enter Trust with him as a paladin. That was pretty cool. Or I think he can be a DPS as well, depending on which you come as. Which is pretty cool. Yes, he was. Also, I love that Vrtra was the one that seemed to be wanting to understand this world the most, and I think that makes sense, right? Because Vrtra, as being like the dragon and the first brood, uh, he's kind of an alien himself in a way, if you think about it, right? So it makes a lot of sense that he would be really interested in the void in the 13. Wait, he's a dragoon? Yo, that's Pog. I should have went as a damn, I should have went as a tank. Ay, ay, ay. I went as a black mage because I thought it was fitting. Yes. Yeah. I do think, like, if I had to pick, like, a highlight of this patch, besides the banger music, obviously, I would say it would be Zero. I do think Zero was such a pleasant surprise. Uh, in fact, like, I mentioned that I prefer the original with some of those remixes, but actually my favorite remix, this is a bit weird, but my favorite remix was actually Zero's theme. I love the way they incorporated the FF4 sad theme into like her character. It's just so fitting, like that melancholic theme. It just works so beautifully. Yeah, I would say that's my thoughts. Like to put this back at the end, like I loved the characters, both the new ones with like Zero and Golbez, but also old ones like Estinien. I'm anticipating with dread what's gonna happen to Vrtra and Asdaya. I don't think it's gonna be a happy ending, but you know.